Hello, my tenfold hatters. How's your day going? Today is Sunday, the 3rd, April 2022. There is no cussing. There is no cursing. This video is not for kids as it is news. Anyway, I censor this video. We are on the fringes of YouTube, keeping everything away from censorship. Now, with the Russian-Ukraine situation, this is your update for today. I watched Mr.Obvious's video. He pointed out something which, and if anyone ever watches Mr. Obvious, the man is smart. His videos are awesome, and he points out a lot of interesting factors. One of them, he got really right. He gets a lot of stuff right, and even reports when he gets stuff wrong. So he's a pretty good journalist on YouTube. Anyway, not here to cut down on the whole situation with Ukraine and all that other stuff. Anyway, he's pointing out some stuff. So to give context to his latest and most awesome video, the situation on Ukraine, with the Ukrainian president declaring victory and trying to take control and get control back. So he points out that the Ukrainians are going to push to get Chrimeria back, which I got a feeling they're going to try to push. The Russians have not had an easy time taking over Ukraine. Some of the things that Mr. Obvious has not had was probably an understanding about the Russian military, what's going on. Not saying he's arrogant or stupid or he didn't do his research, just it's not really his thing. He's more concerned about the more serious issue of an endless war and becoming World War III. And that's what I'm also concerned with. So we've watched in the last couple of months, the Russians invaded Ukraine, then they ran into some logistics problems, and then they got the Ukrainians, who have been trained by the CIA, have been using American anti-tank weapons and British anti-tank weapons, which have done tremendous damage and have forced the Russian soldiers into some serious issues. The other thing is, we noticed that the Russian paratroopers, instead of taking the stairs, took an elevator where they got stuck. And Mr. Obvious is a very smart guy, but I don't know if he covers the whole situation with the Russian military and how underperforming they are. The Ukrainians, not so much. We're finding out that they've been really training good, hard, and be good with guerrilla tactics. And they've had some tools to somewhat cut off the supply thing. Now, I will say this. He pointed out something which was really smart. Russians like to reinforce the land they already have so it doesn't get taken over. Right now, they have Chrimeria. The Ukrainians are going to take back Chrimeria, or attempt it in this situation. But he made a very good point about what Russia's really reinforcing. Now, there's two ways that this can happen, and Mr. Obvious knows that I'm probably going to tell you how it goes because he's going to talk about it, is the fact that Turkey has access to the Black Sea and into the Mediterranean. And Turkey is the ultimate factor. Now, Turkey wants peace as soon as possible. They don't want a war with Russia. Erdogan has been talking with Putin, trying to keep things peaceful. But if Turkey wants to, they can actually cut off the area, which if anyone who remembers the Battle of Gallipoli was a big thing during World War I, was to take that so the Russian Imperial fleet can go out of the Black Sea and into the ocean. So what Turkey is doing is trying to create peace and not try to condemn Russia. Now, all the other NATO nations are like, we're going to condemn Russia. You got some are like, hey, we don't need to escalate it this far. We all miss Trump, including Mr. Obvious. I myself, a huge fan of him, but I miss Trump. We need him back more than ever. His foreign policy was perfect. Then Biden shows and says, Build back better. Oh my God, fraud, corruption. Yeah, it continues. All right, but anyway, going back to what I was saying. The situation with Russia and Ukraine, to add content. Ukraine right now, there's a parable from Sun Tzu. Appear strong when you are weak, and appear weak when you are strong. The other thing is, what the Ukrainian leader's intentions are is to make his demands hard and becoming a negotiating between the middle. Now, Mr. Obvious, he's very worried, and rightfully so. But I'm just going to say to Mr. Obvious, should probably spend some time with people who are of the, the Slavic nature of Russia and the other countries in Eastern Europe. They're hardcore motherfucking people. And Mr. Obvious, you're a smart person. There's no doubt about it. Though from a perspective of a person who's dealt with how they work, they're going to be very hard-nosed and hard-pressed because it's their culture. So I think Zelensky has a shot at taking Chrimeria with his current troop positions. And they can do it in such a way where it becomes hard for the Russians to hold if certain things happen, like Turkey blocking the Black Sea from the Russians. They're going to have to do everything by land. And recently, the Ukrainians struck within 20 to 30 miles inside Russia and knocked out a fuel farm. And I know what you're going to say. It has to do with the fact that tanks are a logistical nightmare. See, the United States, what we would have done is we would have taken those tanks, put them up on the back of a flatbed, and drove those tanks to its destination and then had them set up, because we don't want to burn all the fuel of a tank. And that's the thing. I wonder if the Russians could have done is put all their tanks onto trucks and then unload them off to the fobs so they can move a little bit forward and then set up their fobs. They didn't do that. Now, what the Ukrainians have for an advantage, Mr. Obvious, is they have a drone advantage. Drones right now are the biggest threat to every military. They're small, they're compact. You could put a small little explosive that can land like right in the middle of a fuel farm and cause all sorts of damage. And it's just, they could cause chaos, And I know, Mr. Obvious, you're a smart guy. But just to let you know, these are the tactics that are being employed. And the goal of the Ukrainian people is to cut off the supply chain. Every general in history knows that once you're able to cut off the supply chain, or their supply chain is to be able to cut off, is to pull away from that territory. So yes, the Russians are succeeding territory of land they cannot keep because they know the supply lines can be easily attacked. Again, for anyone who doesn't know, the Russians are pulling away because they know they can't keep the land, because they cannot hold the supply chains to support that land. That can be wiped out. The situation with Chrimeria, on the other hand, and I'm glad Mr. Obvious pointed it out, is it's being well fortified. Now the question is, Mr. Obvious, is are they going to, and this is a question that it's on everybody's mind, will they hold the supply chain? And that's a big question. Now, Mr. Obvious, I'm going to give you some history with content. You probably know this. It's probably going to be more like for my 10 boilers and everyone who watched this video. The situation when Japan went to war with Russia in World War II, the Japanese knew that they couldn't take over or invade Siberia because they couldn't hold the supply chains. And as they say, amateurs speak tactics, professionals speak logistics. All in all, you brought up the most important, and I think you are 100% right. And this video, again, like I said, it's just to add context of what would happen in order for the Ukrainians to win. It's a hyperbole. I'm not going to sit there and say this and that. I'm just going to say what would be the objective goals for them to actually have an advantage on the Russians. And I'm not going to sit there and say, talk ill will of the Russian people. They're not demons. They're human beings. They're just stuck in a fucked up situation. And it's a situation created by rich, powerful douchebags. This is why I miss Trump. He may not have been perfect, but he always told the truth. Nonetheless, so Mr. Obvious, you pointed out the thing with that. Yeah, you're 100% right. The strategic goal. I mentioned something about Turkey blocking off the sea access to the Black Sea, which they could do. Those would be, I think, the two major factors that could hurt Russia. And I know you're going to talk to me, what about the land bridges? The question is fuel depots. Ukraine has already managed to get inside Russian territory and hit fuel depots within inside Russia. And like you and like I am scared if they start doing operations inside Russia and if they will actually start firing nukes. Now, as for hypersonic missiles, I'm going to give you a little secret on that one. Hypersonic missiles can only carry a small nuclear payload, not a big one. And people are like, oh, no. They can only give out a small nuclear payload. It would be something equivalent to that of a Davy Crockett. And the reason why I say that, you're smart as well as I am, is how heavy these payloads are and just the weight versus the thrust, because we understand how thrusts. Plus, to break it down, hypersonic missile means anything that goes faster than Mach 5. So we're just going to get that clear. The U.S. has tons of hypersonic missiles that go faster than Mach 5. But we don't talk about that. And so, the situation with China's hypersonic missile, yeah, it's fast, but, adding a nuclear warhead will actually slow it down. It may be significant enough to be able to be caught. And, we're going to be working on stuff that far well gets it a lot faster. I mean, you, Mr. Obvious, you're a very smart guy. I love watching your videos. So, again, this video is to add content to what you're saying and to give more or less a detailed perspective of what would happen to make a Ukrainian victory possible, and also if that Ukrainian victory became more possible, what would happen next? I don't think Ukraine should join NATO, because Ukraine joining NATO would be a big dangerous issue. At the same time, I also think we need to find out about those biolabs. Now, I read up in an old report talking about the time when Senator Obama was there to part of the, I guess, Foreign Affairs Committee or something like that. I have to look it up. He, back in 2005, helped approve legislation to go ahead and fund the building of biolabs in Ukraine. And in 2010, those labs were completed. So, to Mr. Obvious, keep making videos, man. I really like them. And, like I said, we'll just go over the stuff. But, I just wanted to add contents to what you're saying and just give a more detailed introspective to your videos. I'm not here to sit there and say, oh, they suck. No, I honestly say they're really great. I just wanted to go ahead and give you the more underlying issues with the problems with the Russian military and how guerrilla tactics right now is doing sabotage to the supply chains. The importance of logistics when it comes to combat. As they say, amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics. Well, this is the big deal. If the Russians cannot keep the supply lines open and their supply lines are being open to minuscule attack, and the Ukrainians have a setup to where they could take their mortars, hide them in the woods, in the forest, and then use drones to spot where the enemy is and launch an attack. Yeah, that really does make a big deal, especially since a meter is about 40 inches, and average mortar shell has a blast radius of about 150 meters. So that's more than 150 yards or 160 yards per se. Yeah, it's pretty bad, man. I probably got the calculation. I'm just guesstimating here. But, those mortar rounds that those Ukrainians fire right onto an area or a forward operating base that the Russians have are pretty devastating. And the drone technology we have now, we barely have a way to counter it. It would require going up to the satellites and just engaging GPS control. And that's a theory that I keep wondering how that's going to go out. But, Mr. Obvious, love your vids. If you're watching this, as a tenfoiler, I just want to say, go out, have a good, peaceful time. Take care of your things. Take care of your people. Be good, be kind, be positive. Be the change that you want people to see. Also, too, watch and subscribe to Mr. Obvious. He's got some really good YouTube videos. So, enjoy.